Right next door. So do
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
You're just the master craftsman at all things.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
On duty, I
I'm making sure it's over my head.
Hello.
So we're feeling
Somebody else asked about this, about suicide.
Good morning. All is well. My name is Nina Hentz, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Welcome to those of you who are here with us in person at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, Virginia. We extend a special welcome if you are joining us for the first time. We also say welcome to those who are joining us on YouTube. Our minister is the Reverend Walter LaFleur. And the focus of this morning's service is covenant, the glue that binds. Remember that in keeping with our COVID protocol, as soon as the service is over today, we would like you to exit the building quickly and join us in the Memorial Garden for chats. And our collection today is a special collection for New Horizons Healthcare. You may either just put cash into the collection basket, or you may write out a check to UUCR with New Horizons in the memo line.
Morning. A few more announcements. Complete auto care. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. This is a report from the board meeting that happened September 13th. And here's a few things that give you an idea of what we're doing. The endowment committee gave us a report on their investment strategy and their criteria for management of our restricted endowment fund, our Goody Kunst fund for capital projects, and our mission and ministry fund. And these guys know what they're doing. Lowell Lindhorn and Cynthia Petzold and the rest of the committee are taking very good care of our money. We also heard from James Rosar, who, there he is in the back, who presented an inspired draft proposal for a bicycle recycling program that uses volunteer workers to collect unwanted bikes and turn them into useful transportation. The board directed him to the endowment committee for possible ministry and mission fund funding, and encouraged him to further develop his proposal. After months of diligent work, Catherine presented and the board approved the revised personnel policy manual, which streamlines and clarifies the relationship between the church and its staff. We also finalized our preparations for the board retreat that happened last weekend, and it was a heartfelt success. We spent a delightful weekend at Mark Nevin's house on Smith Mountain Lake, working on building foundational relationships and creating a board covenant. We also discussed finding a replacement for our departing board member, Dave Perry, and came up with suggestions for the nominating committee to pursue. One or more of you may be getting a tap on your shoulder sometime soon. We're moving toward purchase and installation of a ramp to facilitate access for our physically challenged congregants to the garden area out in front of the church. We have a quote on the ramp and have authorized application for the building permit, so that's moving forward. Catherine reported that Bert Spetzler has agreed to help the COVID safety team in their ongoing evaluation and implementation of COVID safety protocol for the church. So we're trying to stay on top of that, and it's a moving target. Rev Walter reported that he has started assembling a team of worship associates to help share the work of creating rewarding Sunday services. He also reported that listening circles are about to begin the second week of October with approximately 8 circles, which is an increase of 3 over the program that we had last winter, spring. Some of these will be in person and some on Zoom, and stay tuned. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning we ring the bell 7 times in recognition of our 7 principles. And if we're lucky, we're lucky.
So the choir met for the first time here in the small sanctuary. We were masked and distanced and safe, and we only met for an hour. But in this 1 hour, we had such a good time singing, and we sang something that we love to sing together, which is Spirit of Life. And we recorded it so you can hear us unedited, as if we were actually in the room. We'll be big on the screen, so we'll be in 2D. Our opening words this morning come from the book that's out, and I encourage you to see if you can find on the UUA website. It's entitled Unlocking the Power of Covenant, and it's a report of the UUA Commission on Appraisal. Every 3 years, the UUA identifies an issue or area to investigate. They create a commission, and 3 years later, the book comes out. No single concept is more central to our faith understanding than being in covenant. It is how we try to build and sustain the beloved community. It is the foundation of our governance structure at all levels. Community and covenant require individuals to surrender some degree of autonomy in order to have a workable community. Words of welcome should appear over my head, and you can mouth them silently. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whether your experience of the holy as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here. Nina and light the chalice, and our words come from our hymnal. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Good morning. Ooh, that was a very loud good morning. I like it. My name is Jessie McEwen. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here. You might also hear my fan club saying my name, so if you forgot it already, he'll let you know. So today we're talking about covenant. Who can tell me what a covenant is? Oh my goodness.
An agreement.
An agreement. Between who? Everybody. I see hands. Just shout it out for me. Everybody. Stakeholders.
A believer in the Lord.
A believer in the Lord. Yes, absolutely. No matter what you believe in, we are in covenant with each other because we're in this room together. Now, speaking of being in a room together, I had to share a room with my sister growing up. Did anybody else share a room with a sibling ever? Yes. It's not always easy, is it? My sister and I used to fight all the time. All the time about all different things. And we mostly fought about who was in charge of cleaning the room. And we fought until finally my mom took our bunk beds apart, put them on separate sides of the room, and came into the room with this. Who knows what this is? Tape. She put a strip of tape down the middle of that room and divided that room and said, Jessie, this is your side. Gretchen, this is your side. And I don't want to hear any more about it. Well, we decided that we liked that tape. We put tape on the table at mealtime. We put tape in the car so that Gretchen couldn't touch me when we were on our way home from school. We even put tape down the bed that we shared at my grandparents' house. That tape didn't last very long. One day, I had a rough day at school. My sister's friends were making fun of me. And she was a good big sister. She stepped up and said, don't do that. Don't make fun of my sister. And I was just in a bad mood when I got home. I told my mom what happened, and Gretchen had gone to our room to do homework, and I came up there, and she'd taken a marker and written on that, I love you. And of course, now looking back at it, I feel the same way you do. I kind of want to cry about it, but you know what it told me? It told me that my sister loved me and that she would protect me. And then, the next day I wrote, "You can play with my strawberry shortcake." And then she would write me a note, "Do you want to borrow my sandals?" And we made agreements with each other by writing on this tape that was put in the room to divide us. It was put in that room to make sure that we kept our things separate. But we found ways of working together because of this tape. Now, when we go outside, and all of the folks 5th grade and younger are invited to join us outside in the garden, we're going to develop our covenant for this year. We're going to make a covenant together. And we're going to see ways that we can stay separate and safe and cooperative while also finding ways to write "I love you" on that tape that divides us. If you will meet me and Bonnie at the doorway, we will take you outside and we'll see the rest of you folks after church.
As you go, may joy song with you. As you go in peace. As you go, may love surround you. As you go.
I just love the mini sermon for our children. This morning, for our offering, we have a special collection. It'll be for New Horizons Healthcare. And the baskets will come around and you can put cash in. You can put a check in it. If you put a check in it, how did we say make it payable to? UUCR with New Horizons and the memo line. Eileen Lepro is here to speak to us about the organization.
Good morning. It's good to see some familiar faces and to meet some new faces today. Thanks for this opportunity to tell you a little more about New Horizons Healthcare. I'm Eileen Lepro, I'm the CEO. We are a nonprofit, community-based primary care clinic. Our board of directors is representative of the community that we serve, and a majority of our board members are also consumers or patients who use the center's services. Our mission is to provide access to affordable, high-quality, comprehensive, culturally competent primary care. We currently have 3 sites in Roanoke. We're getting ready to open 2 more new sites soon, and so there'll be a public announcement about that soon. Keep an eye out for it. I wanted to give you a summary of our services, and then also highlight some special things that we're doing currently. So the core features of our comprehensive primary care services are medical and dental care, behavioral health and psychiatric care, medication assistance. We have a full service pharmacy. We offer case management, care coordination, specialty referrals. We also provide health education, chronic disease management, and spend a lot of time on preventive services and wellness care as well. We provide those services in an integrated care team model, which means that the patient is at the center of that service, and then the team of staff coordinates care that are specific to the patient's needs and their support system. So I wanted to highlight a few special programs that we offer. We have an office-based opioid treatment program, also known as an OBOT, where we do individual and group counseling, prescribe and help patients manage Suboxone medication and as part of the management of their addiction. We also provide dental outreach, and previous to COVID, we were doing that quite a bit with children in Head Starts and starting to get into schools. We've shifted a bit recently, and we're now going to Friendship Living And we're dealing with patients on the other end of the spectrum and are taking our services to them with portable equipment. And we can provide a pretty broad range of dental services for bedside with the patient or in their apartment if they're in assisted living. We have a CDC lifestyle prevention program that tackles issues of nutrition and emotional health and staying physically active and preventing chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. We've had quite a bit of success with that program, including weight loss and holding off on having to take diabetes medication. We have an open access program on a daily basis. Patients can receive care same day appointments or walk-ins for primary medical care. And we also just extended that to dental services at our site in Southeast. So one of our 3 sites currently is a dental-only service that we offer at the Fralin Free Clinic. We're co-located there with the Rescue Missions Free Clinic. And that's an open access program, which means that patients, either new patients or established patients, receive care for acute emergency needs. We also have a pharmacy delivery program that was new we started that up at the very beginning of the pandemic because we were trying to reduce activity on site in person. And so we started delivering medications to patients, and that's a full-fledged pharmacy delivery program now. We're doing that Monday through Friday. And we have a pretty broad radius throughout the city of Roanoke and the neighboring communities. We also are doing COVID testing and providing vaccines, and we do that in partnership and with the support of VDH and the federal government as well. Just a little bit about COVID and its impact on our organization. It was pretty dramatic at first, where we had to reduce our services, including dental. We really had to just cut that out for a temporary period of time, and then gradually come back as our staff was able to return to work. We had to take care of staff in the beginning, and that's had a huge impact on healthcare throughout. We introduced the option of telehealth very early on, and we still have patients who prefer to receive virtual visits, particularly for behavioral health counseling. That's worked out really well. We needed to make many adjustments to accommodate our staff's personal and family needs, and continue to do so, and really continue to try to support our staff because it's been a long 18 plus months. We've gradually returned to more normal daily operations, and I'm pleased to say that in 2020, despite everything that was going on, we still managed to serve nearly 10,000 individual patients. We had, which is a pretty good chunk. I mean, that's our patient base. And I think that 2021, that will probably increase. But we had over 36,000 visits in 2020 as well. And that includes those virtual visits, but mostly in-person visits because our patients have come to rely on us over the years. And they really need sometimes that personal touch, and doing that through telehealth just wasn't cutting it for many of our patients. So by coincidence, we also celebrated our 20th anniversary in 2020. We had huge plans for what we were going to do to invite the whole community into our celebration, and of course we didn't really end up celebrating. We just marked the occasion and we kept pushing on. But we hope that maybe by year 25 we'll be able to bring the whole community back together to take a look back at where this grassroots organization has come from and what we're providing in this community. So we're so grateful to be chosen as a recipient of this special nonprofit offering. I'm very familiar with the program. I know that it's limited and somewhat competitive, and I'm really appreciative of that on behalf of our organization. Your contributions will go directly into patient assistance programs and will help numerous patients. We know that everybody struggled during the pandemic, and none more than the patients that we serve. Our target, our focus is the underserved and vulnerable population in the Valley. And we've been frontline witnesses to their pain and suffering and loss. And on behalf of our whole community, for some of us, that's been very close to home as well. So we so appreciate your willingness to support organizations like ours. And I'll be here following the service. I could talk for a couple of hours, and I'm not, obviously not going to do that, but I'll be available if you want to know more, or if you just want to chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. It's good to see as much of your face as is visible. It's good that we have gathered. We're grateful for your generosity. Know that your generosity helps support the mission of this congregation.
Good morning again. Our first reading is from one of my favorite pieces of literature. I used to teach it when I taught 11th grade English. And it's from Letter from Birmingham Jail by Dr. Martin Luther King. And it reads, "In a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality." The second reading has a lot of covenant in it. Covenant, I was like talking over covenant here this morning. Covenant is living, and this is from UUA. To be meaningful and transformative for us as individuals, as congregants, as an association, and as a faith movement, our covenant must be a living experience. But living experiences must be ongoing. Covenants grow and adapt. They are reviewed and renewed. Quite often, review leads to changes in the words of our covenants, but equally as often, they stay the same after a review. What matters is this: the ongoing process of assessment and rejuvenation. Living experience makes covenant a vital force. Engagement must be a part of a covenant experience. We engage with the words in the covenant, and we engage with each other in the promises we make. This is an intentional and energetic activity that requires focus and attention. Especially when incorporated into ritual, engagement with the covenant means embodying the covenant, putting its words and its values into concrete action in the world. A covenant is by definition mutual. The promises we make and the relationships that we build create an infrastructure that supports the communities and the network of congregants that make up the UUA. Essentially, covenant as a lived experience energizes and authorizes the congregations and their network of communities. That strength and momentum empowers UUs to unleash their power to the wider world, build beloved community through action, and work for justice through love. Ritual is not some flimsy aesthetic that appeals only to the sentimental. This moment is powerful. It changes us, inspiring and moving us to transform the future. It strengthens us to put the covenant to use, to act it out, to do covenant in all things. The act of a covenant ritual in and of itself will change the participants on a neurological level.
This morning, I want to talk to you about that which is foundational to Unitarian Universalism. When we talk about what's foundational in our faith community, we typically talk about our 7 principles. We here at this congregation ring our bell 7 times each Sunday morning, ritualistically, as an ingathering. Recently, it was recommended that we put our 7 principles up on the screen as a reminder of what they are, rather than just note them by the ringing of a bell. I was pleased to hear people suggest this because I think it's important that we have this in front of us. Covenant is what's important, and it grounds us. It tethers us to one another and to our faith tradition. It's so easy. Let me find myself here. It's so easy for that which is ritualistic to become commonplace and lose much of its intended purpose. Think about the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem before sports events. For some it has meaning, but for others it's just going through the motions. This morning I want to bring our attention to something even more important, more fundamental than our 7 principles. It's called covenant. The notion of covenant in the UU world is hundreds of years old. It emerged long before Unitarians and Universalists joined hands in the early 60s to adopt our 7 principles. The concept of covenant itself is much older than that. The concept of covenant goes back to at least biblical times. God entered into covenant with Noah when he told him to build a boat and to gather up animals, and all would be well after the flood. This, then that. It's a behavioral covenant that was entered into. There was a promise made to Noah. Despite the tremendous power differentials between the 2 entities, a promise was made, a behavioral promise. And I will. At a later date, God entered into covenant with Abraham. He made a 2-fold promise to make Abraham into a great nation, making his name great. And secondly, God would bestow blessings to all people on earth through Abraham's offspring. The concept of covenant re-emerges in the early days of the existence of American Universalism, or Unitarianism rather. In 17th century Puritans became Congregationalists. American Universalism grew out of Congregationalism in the 19th century. Around 1640, in Dedham, Massachusetts, a small number of Puritans decided to break away from the hierarchy and the constraints of the Church of England. They established a church based on a radical notion that they would be lay-led. They would exist based on mutual consent, based on covenant, rather than based in creed. They would be governed by the congregation itself, rather than any political hierarchy. They sought a faith community based on love that came out of freedom to choose. They created what's become known as the Cambridge Platform in 1648. Reverend Alice Blair Wesley converted the original words into language we might better understand in this century. She writes, "We pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, as best we know them now, or may learn them in the days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill." For translation. I think of covenant as guardrails within which we agree, promise, in fact, to exist within, together. In the case we just heard, they named it as truth and affection, as best we know them. Guardrails not only describe boundaries, but circumscribe expected behavior. As Blair Wesley translates, that we speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill. The UUA Commission on Appraisal this past June published the book I mentioned earlier titled Unlocking the Power of Covenant. The UUA spends 3 years studying a particular subject, then reports back to the association. As I said, go find it. I've spent time reading it. It's good reading, and it's powerful, and it's informative. The commission created the definition of covenant. The covenant they created says, "A covenant is a mutual sacred promise between individuals or groups to stay in relationship, care about each other, and work together in good faith. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we seek to raise the we above I, the community above the individual. As seekers, we willingly choose, and it's capitalized, choose, to love each other and stay in relationship over and over, again and again. In this way, we may break promises, but by leaning into the transformational power of our faith, we can begin again in love. That covenant, created by this commission, names 2 issues of particular importance. First, it says, we seek to raise the we above the I, the community above the individual. It names this issue because in the ways of truth and affection, we must acknowledge that nations and individuals have strong tendencies to center self as a primary reference point. Truth be told, we UUs have proven we have competence in that area. It's not unusual for us to place I before the we. And further, we live in a larger culture that all too often rewards exactly that behavior. Secondly, the covenant they created speaks in terms of, in the ways of truth and affection, we must acknowledge our human fallibility. The covenant says, willingly choose to love each other and stay in relationship over and over, again and again. In this way, we may break promises, but by leaning into transformational power of our faith, we can begin again in love. The second clause speaks to the truth of our human nature. We do not exist in perfect form. We screw up, we bungle things, we misspeak, we hurt each other's feelings. We accuse, we get angry, we even pout. Yet, our faith calls us to stay within the guardrails of covenant, willingly choose to love each other and stay in relationship over and over again and again. Because of our human behavioral traits, our earlier reading this morning stressed the importance of regularly revisiting, renewing, and reciting our covenant, and doing so in a ritualistic manner to signify its importance. Covenants exist throughout Unitarian Universalism. Virtually every church and every operating committee at a national level develops a covenant, including gatherings of young adults and youth. Many committees within churches create covenants. Ordained UU ministers and ministers on the tract ordination are all called to be in covenantal relationship with the UUA, with their fellow ministers, and with the Ministers Association. As a UU minister, in addition to being in generalized covenant with the UUA and my peers, I'm also in covenant with the called ministers who preceded me here in this pulpit, and with the Minister Emeritus you voted to honor with that title. We've talked and we've agreed to the particular relationships we will have with each other and our relationships with this church. We each honor the different roles we have and do play with this congregation. In each congregation I've worked with, I've strongly encouraged each operating committee to establish a working covenant that reflects how they engage with each other and the work that they're committed to. I've also supported working with each organization or each congregation to establish or update their church-wide covenant. I searched and I struggled to find the covenant of this congregation. The covenant seems to have been in mothballs for a number of years now. I understand it was created or last renewed in 2012, maybe 2013. It has virtually no effective purpose if people don't know what it is or where it is. It's clear to me, as your developmental minister, in the near future, this congregation needs to engage the work of creating or reimagining, renewing the covenant. In the interim, I encourage each committee to establish a covenant to guide your work and to guide your interactions with each other. As the recent report of the UUA Commission on Appraisal states, there is power in covenant. There is power in covenant. It not only creates guardrails for behavior, it also creates a path by which to return to covenantal relationships when they become frayed. It reminds us of our faith commitments, and it tethers us to the larger UU world. I'm going to end my words this morning with your words. I want to read the UU covenant that I found. It's about the same length as many other congregations' covenant, and shorter than others. Covenant of Community for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. The Preamble. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, covenant to affirm and promote the purposes and principles of Unitarian Universalist Association. Therefore, we aspire in our relationships with one another to speak directly with one another in our concerns and our encouragements, or to seek help in doing so if we feel it is needed. To extend trust, patience, and goodwill to one another. We choose to act and communicate respectfully. When differences arise, we will listen and work together, appreciating conflict as an opportunity to grow. We understand that not all concerns can be resolved in our personal satisfaction. To honor the worth and dignity of each member, friend, and guest, including our children. We seek to know one another as individuals and friends, building community together. Under the category in our relationships to this church, to be responsible stewards of this church, offering support both financially as we are able and through the work of our hands and hearts. To care for the building and grounds, the place where our faith is sheltered. To value our professional staff, lay leaders, and volunteers, and treat them with kindness and respect. To participate in decision-making opportunities that affect our members and our church. In the last section, in our relationships to the larger community, to support the larger UU movement, both in the district and at the national level, to attempt to live by the principles of our faith, both in church and out, to welcome all those who come to us in search of their spiritual paths, to walk softly upon the earth in reverence to life and all that sustains us. Your existent covenant. This past weekend, I was at the board retreat, and the board created a covenant. Erica?
So, the board has a lot of responsibilities, not the least of which is to come up with developmental goals in concert with the minister, to develop a strategic plan and all this important stuff. But if it just comes from here, you can only get so far unless it's supported by what's here in your heart and in your gut. So that's what we worked on, was the heart and the gut during the retreat in preparation for coming up with a board covenant. So the board covenant is, we hold sacred space for each other to foster trust, courage, and inspired leadership. Without the trust, if you've left your egos at the door and then you lose the trust, it creates a vacuum and the egos just come storming back into the room to kind of take over. And we've had some of that in our past church history. So the trust is essential. And then you need the courage, because what if trust is broken or somebody makes a mistake and you get off the rails somehow? You got to have the courage to address that as it's happening. And you need courage to deal with difficult decisions. So you need trust and you need courage. And then the inspired leadership is what the board hopes to instill in itself and to the rest of the congregation just by living our covenant. So the covenant, we hold sacred space. This is a church board, right? We hold sacred space for each other to foster trust, courage, and inspired leadership.
Morning. I'm Linda Wood from the Caring Committee, representing that group today, and I was just thinking that our covenant, the Caring Committee's covenant with all of you, is that we collect and keep in our hearts and share with everybody your joys and concerns that you'd like to express to everyone in the church. We do that through people contacting one of the Caring Committee members or contacting Judy, or in the morning writing this book that's always kept down here in front of the altar, this Lifelines book. So let us enter into a time of reverence together and share some things that we have. Betsy Biesenbach's mother died Friday afternoon. And I have a message here from Joan Wages. My mother, Helen Gibbon, passed away on Sunday, September the 19th. She slipped away quietly while enjoying some time on the patio at her place of residence in Charlottesville, Virginia. She loved being outside. She and my late father, Art Gibbon, were members of UUCR in the early 70s and members of the UU Charlottesville congregation for many years, more recently. And she would love to hear condolences from you. And here's a joy. A UU church contacted us and asked to use one of UUCR's choir videos in their service. So our hard work, Carrie's hard work, is bringing joy to others. So Reverend Walter and I will now light candles for all those who are not present, or for those who are present but holding something in your heart that you'd love to share. So let's do this and take time to be together in meditation, prayer, and reflection. May our prayers be heard and our hearts be restored.
Did you just take my prayer?
Thanks.
Join me in prayer. We've gathered here today as fortunate people in the presence of the mystery that guides all life, known by many names and by no name at all. Lover of loving, we're grateful for this community of faith, a spiritual home we can call our own, knowing we will be supported, knowing someone will depend on us for caring and support, knowing we are seen and we are known. How fortunate we are to feel a sense of safety, a sense of belonging. For God knows only too well the number of those who are homeless, struggling to survive another day, hungry and afraid. May they find peace before they come to believe there is no love, no caring in this world. Let us join in sending heart energy to them. Say a prayer for them. Do what is ours to do to make better this world of ours. Amen.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Speaking of covenants, we have several announcements this morning that actually bring us all together as a group and a congregation. Our first is at 12:30 today. We have a climate rally out on the corner of Grandin and Brandon. Come on out, signs will be provided. Take part, save the world. It's our covenant to save the world. This one I just love. We've heard comments about the light in the hallway needing the bulbs changed. Not as simple as that, or we would have done it. Ballast needs replacing. Unless there is someone in the congregation who is knowledgeable with such and wants to save the church some money by volunteering to do that, Judy will be contacting a handyman to fix it. Please contact Judy if you can assist with the ballast in the church. See me afterwards and I'll give your name to Judy. Awesome. See? I love this. On Thursday, September 30th, from 8:30 to 10:30, come with your fellow UUs and spruce up our grounds. We'll be weeding, pruning, digging up stumps in preparation for planting new shrubs. We have a few tools, but it might be best to bring your own, and don't forget your work gloves. If you can join us, let Mary Harshfield know at mary.harsh803@gmail.com. She's in the directory as well. And another reminder that the new church hours are 12 noon to 4 p.m. This Wednesday, this is super important. This Wednesday, September 29th, if you know anything about IT, just take a moment to pray. We are planning to switch over to our new website. The old website, as well as the church email system, will be down, which means completely non-functional for the day. If you have an important need, please call Judy at the church number 540-342-8888. Barring any unforeseen issues, both the website and the email system should be operational on Thursday, July the 30th. If you have pigeons, this might be the time to train them. What? I meant September. Thanks. I'm just, In just a few weeks, UUCR will fill our covenant with Family Promise here in the Roanoke Valley. We feed 4 families 1 dinner on Wednesday night, provide lunch items for the week, and gift cards for the families to use as needed. You can see me after the service if you are interested in teaming up with other people to make a meal. I know that our youth group is going to make one of the meals this time. And we very much need help with ushers on Sunday mornings. Please speak with Michael Adams if you can help. Michael's right back there. Thank you.
So our closing music today is a Buddhist meditation, May I Be Filled with Loving Kindness. And this is a song arranged by Karen Drucker. And it's about wishing love for ourselves and for each other and also for our church. And as I was singing it this morning, I thought, well, this is really quite easy to sing or say, but it's a little bit harder to actually do because we're not always filled with loving kindness. Especially when somebody cuts you off, when you're driving. Or stands too close to you when you're in the line at the grocery store and they're not wearing masks. Anyway. So you can think about ways you can fill yourselves with loving kindness and wish that for others. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. And may you be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we be happy. We are filled with loving kindness. We are well. We are filled with loving kindness. We can be happy.
Let me remind you that we're still in a time of COVID. And so I ask you not to dawdle in this space at the end of the service. It's a wonderful day outside. Greet and smooze. How do you say that word? Schmooze. Outside. Go into your week in peace, knowing that this is home. Bring your best self, bring your worst self, bring yourself, and be here. This is home. Go into your week in peace.